Backyard Brawl is back for the first time in 11 years. There's no question in my mind the #1 rival for our football program would be Pitt.
There's a lot of hatred on their end. There's got to be a lot of hate on our end. And to me, you always got to make it personal, and it will be personal.
It's going to be the same trash talking on the field, the same intensity in the game. Ain't nothing going to change at all.
This isn't just a team thing. This is a state thing.
So I'm going to just go out and say 13-9. That's the outcome we're looking for. Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a game that hasn't gone down since 2011. That's over a decade if you're not great at math. These two teams have met 104 times in their history, and the Backyard Brawl returns tonight. West Virginia has made the 75-mile trip, and we are here too, getting you ready for that one tonight, and so much more in week 1 of the college football season. I mean, it's lit out here. The fans are ready.
They are.
We're a little bit more ready, I would say. I mean, we're pretty hyped. We all kind of match. You can't see us yet, but me and the Harrys all in our blues. We love to see it. Welcome to Countdown to College Game Day, presented by Dr. Pepper. I am Christine Williamson, Harry Lyles Jr.'s assistant. This is Harry Douglas. Guys, it's so great to be here.
We're here.
Awesome. We're actually
We're here.
Harry's sweating a little bit.
A little bit.
You know,
I
you're
wear
not
it
sweating
well,
at all.
though, honestly.
Explain quickly why you're not sweating and Lyles is sweating.
Well, you know,
Maybe not.
I was born down in Florida. I moved to Georgia, and then that allowed me not to sweat so much in my adulthood.
That's what we like. That's a good,
Yeah,
good reason,
and
I
mean, my folks are from up north, so I guess genetically I'm just not, I'm not built for that.
Right.
You know?
It's all in the blood.
Fine.
It's all in the
That's
blood.
Yeah.
All right, so every single show we're going to start it off with something that we like to call 3 big things. And I'm going to go first because there's a game tonight, Oklahoma State taking on Central Michigan. And, you know, this game seems very unassuming on the surface. But if you know, the last time that these two teams played, it was in 2016. I was working for the Big 12 at the time. I don't know if you guys knew I used to work for the Big 12.
We did not.
Didn't know that at all. Okay, so it was actually kind of crazy because this game was supposed to end on Oklahoma State last offensive down. We talked about this earlier today, right? Yep. The Chippewas were able to come back and win it, even though the game was supposed to be over. Oklahoma State had like the All I Do Is Win song playing in the stadium.
Yes.
They thought the game was over, but in fact, the Chippewas got the ball. There's a guy named Cooper Rush who was the quarterback. He did a Hail Mary. They caught it, and then there was a lateral that allowed them to score, so they won the game. So this is the rematch of that matchup. It should be not that exciting. Who knows? Who knows? Anything can happen.
You
Anything
gotta
can
sell
happen.
it better than that.
It's not going to be that exciting.
No, I'm saying it shouldn't be that exciting, but it'll still be a good football game.
I'll say for Oklahoma State, I'm worried about their defense. Jim Knowles is no longer their defensive coordinator. Right. How's that defense going to look? Spencer Sanders, is he going to be able to put this team on his back, not just tonight, but the rest of the season?
Right. Okay, let's have Douglas go next. I mean, I know you want to talk about another defense, not Oklahoma State. So
I'm going to go with Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons. This team won 11 games last year. We're not worried about their offense. It's their defense. Last year, they gave up 56 points to Navy. Yes, I said it, Navy. They gave up 58 to another opponent, and then they gave up 45 to the Pitt Panthers right here, and then they gave up 48 to Clemson. So if they want a chance this year to be successful in the ACC, and they played in the ACC championship game last year, they're going to have to defensively be better than they were a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously that's just the whole different situation, especially with Sam Hartman. You look at Wake, and they were a team that were coming in with a lot of high hopes. They could still have a really good year, but it's definitely going to be a challenge for them.
Okay, Harry Lyles. What is your big thing this week? I mean, I don't know.
My big
thing?
thing?
Not on the sideline for this game or anything like that.
It's all this. It's these people out here, all of it. I mean, the Backyard Brawl is back. I wrote a reported piece for ESPN.com to capture the history of this rivalry, which is one of the top rivalries in all of college football. A lot of people that have played in it, have been in it for years, will tell you, hey, it's perhaps not the best on the field, but in terms of the intensity, it does not get better than this. You got two schools that are 75 miles apart. It's two different areas, right? Like, this is the urban campus. Morgantown is the country, as they say. It's the Mills versus the Mines. This game has been gone for 11 years, but in talking to some of these guys this week, some of these players, they still understand how intense this game is and what it means for everybody. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
It's going to be a good one. I actually read that article. That's kind of where I got some of the stuff for the scene set, so thanks you very much. If you haven't read it, go to .com and read the article. Obviously, watch that game tonight at 7 p.m. Harry Lyles Jr. is going to be on the sideline. And we have a lot of things to talk about today. What we have coming up next is we'll dive into the expectations and the top storylines in my other favorite conference, the ACC.
Oh, surprising,
and
Christine.
Clemson bounced back is the NC State hype reel. And what about Pitt? I don't know why nobody wrote in this bump something about Miami, but okay, Cologne, whatever. Anyways, also, speaking of Pitt, Spencer Hall will be joining us to talk about all things petty, nonsensical, and amazing about the Backyard Brawl. But before we get to all of that, we have to talk about the fact that over the last decade, one team has topped the ACC standings almost every single season. But this season, there are a lot of teams that could take the crown. So, who should we be watching? Our guy, Chris Bear Felica, is going to crunch the numbers for us.
In the ACC, the song remains the same. Clemson's Tigers are the Kings, and it's always Clemson walking away with the trophy.
6 straight ACC titles, 6 straight college football playoff appearances, 97 straight weeks on the AP Top 10. It all came to an end in 2021 for Clemson. Can the Tigers get back to those lofty levels? That depends on their quarterback play. Among 62 qualified Power 5 quarterbacks last year, DJ Uyunglele ranked 54th with a QBR of 43. The Tigers averaged 5.6 yards per dropback, good for 109th in the country, down from 8.0 in 2020 and 8.1 in 2019. Who benefited the most from Clemson's decline? That would be Pitt.
Pickett, a beautiful set and throw. Adelson for the touchdown.
But gone from the 2021 ACC champions are over 4,300 passing yards and 42 touchdown passes from Kenny Pickett, along with Jordan Addison's 100 receptions, nearly 1,600 receiving yards, and 17 touchdowns. Whoever steps in to replace that duo will know they have one of the best defenses in the country. Over the last 3 years, no team in the country has more sacks than Pitt's 151, and only Georgia has allowed fewer yards per carry than the Panthers' 2.76. When the league expanded, the thought was Florida State and Miami would regularly compete for the ACC title. But since 2017, Miami has the same record as Wake Forest, while Florida State is just 26-33, 10th among 14 ACC teams.
Tyler Van Dyke is really, really special. You have a natural leader that demands as much of himself as he does of anybody else.
Giving the Canes hope is quarterback Tyler Van Dyke, who ended last season with 6 straight games of 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. In the college football playoff era, the only other quarterback to have a streak that long, 2019 Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow.
There he goes to the end zone. Touchdown, NC State. This kid's going to be outstanding. Just watch.
2022's biggest buzz team is NC State and their quarterback Devin Leary, whose 35-5 touchdown to interception ratio last year is the 3rd best among returning Power 5 quarterbacks. But make no mistake, the strength of the Wolfpack is its defense. 88% of all production is back from a unit that ranked in the top 15 nationally in 3-and-out percentage, 3rd down defense, and points per drive. All of the pieces are in place for NC State's first 10-win season since 2002.
Pittsburgh for the Backyard Brawl between West Virginia and Pittsburgh. A lot of exciting things happening today, and since we're on the subject of ACC, we got to talk about the ACC because there's been one team that has been absolutely dominant every single year, so we're going to talk about the ACC with our girl, Andrea Adelson. Now, okay, I went to Clemson in grad school. It's funny that we talk about Clemson having a down year. Obviously, they didn't win the ACC, but they still had 10 wins last season. So what exactly, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I was just distracted by a picture of JT Daniels with his toes in his mouth, or somebody's toes in his mouth.
Backyard Brawl, baby.
That's what it's all about.
That's right.
Anyways, when you talk about coming back for Clemson. What does back exactly mean for this Clemson team this season?
It means a playoff appearance, right? Because that's the standard that they've set with Dabo Swinney. Now, he'll be the first one to remind you, 10 wins, but 11 straight years. So he doesn't consider last year a down year the way maybe others might, but I think there's a lot of expectation for this team to make a playoff again, because if they don't, there'll be a lot more questions about where the program is headed, because in Clemson, I don't think people are going to be happy just with 10 wins and no playoff anymore.
That's true. You guys agree? They need to go playoff or bust.
Yeah, but when I look at this team, though, like, offensively, they need DJ Uwangalele to be consistent. That was, I say, the dark cloud for him last year.
What's his last name, Harry?
Uwangalele.
Uwangalele.
Close enough. We got it. But he has to be consistent for them to even have a chance to win the ACC. But not even that. What they were missing last year was a slot receiver. All their receivers were the same size. They have a freshman, Antonio Williams. I'll tell everyone, watch out for him. They also have Spector as well. But when I look at this team defensively, they have the best defensive line in college football. You talk about Miles Murphy, Brian Breesy, A.J. Henry. They have guys, Tyler Davis, but they have to show up and show out week in and week out.
And honestly, those guys that he just mentioned are the biggest reason I'm excited for Clemson, and the other reason that they should be excited is strictly just because of what they did last year. I think a lot of people look at what Clemson did last year. They started off slow, but they finished really strong. Like, right, that was a, what, 10-3 that they went, that to me was Dabo's most impressive, just because he was able to do what he did with that particular group. And so when you name all these players that they have coming back and some guys that they're looking forward to bringing in, you can't help but have high expectations for them.
You guys are not at all concerned about the fact that Brent Venables is no longer on the Clemson sideline?
I have some
yes
concern.
And no, and they lost both coordinators, Tony Elliott as well. He's no longer there. But at the end of the day, one thing I learned from my playing days, players make plays. Now, great coaching matters, but at the end of the day, those players are on the football field making those plays happen.
Yeah, I have some concern because he hasn't called a game. And this defense was built and created by Brent Venables, right? He's the mastermind behind it all. So that's why I have a little bit of concern. Now, talent-wise, absolutely not. This should be one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the country. Question is whether Wes Goodwin can put it all together for them and get them to live up to that potential.
That makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the place that we're currently at right now, right? Obviously, Pittsburgh, the reigning champs in the ACC. They lost Jordan Adelson. They lost Kenny Pickett. Do you have any concerns about this team? Like, what do you think the offense will look like at Pittsburgh?
The offense is going to look different. Pat Narduzzi told me that yesterday when I saw him in the facility. They really want to be able to run the football. When you talk about Pitt, they got away from that a little bit because they had Kenny Pickett. So, of course, you want to throw the ball around when you got a guy like that. But they've got a new offensive coordinator in Frank Cignetti Jr., and he wants to kick some tail. That's what he wants to do. They put an emphasis on that the entire offseason. In practice, Pat Narduzzi said that's where he saw it come through, that they practiced it every single day. It's a mindset and mentality. And I asked their starting defensive end, Deslin Alexander, okay, you went against these guys in practice. Do you notice a difference between last year and this year? He said, oh, absolutely.
Well, that's the thing about any level of football. How do you win? Up front, offensive line, defensive line. Pitt is returning 5 starters on the offensive line. We all know what they were defense, second in the nation and sacking the quarterback with 53, 6 against the run. So we know what they're going to be defensively. Now, offensively, can they lean on those offensive linemen and be able to rush the football? Jordan Addison is not there. Keaton Slovis. Can we get the freshman year Keaton Slovis that we've seen from USC? But they have a transfer from Akron, wide receiver-wise, Kenneth Mumford. I think he's going to be enough for the Pitt Panthers to do something this year.
Look, and even though they did lose Jordan Addison, he's one reason that they're still excited with, hey, the weapons that they do have in the running backs, as you mentioned, they're going to play a lot of guys on offense. Like, this is going to be a team that is not going to run out of gas. They're going to keep the ball moving. Keaton Slovis, I think that, I mean, at least when we were talking to Narduzzi and the coaches yesterday, they seemed really happy with what they saw out of him. And honestly, the thing to me that was the most stunning was he was really happy with the culture change here. He's like, you know, guys, I have to, like, beg them, like, hey, I want to go throw with you too, but, like, we got to, like, take a break, right? We got to get some water, we got to eat and stuff like that. So it's the culture change for Keaton Slovis. You could tell he's glowing. He loves this atmosphere. It's what he needed, and it's what Pitt needed too after losing the Heisman runner-up.
And that's important. Sometimes all players need is a different environment, a change of scenery. And their career could be revitalized.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about NC State, because there's a lot of hype around NC State going into the season. Obviously, their quarterback's coming back in Devin Leary. He had 35 touchdowns last season. That was amazing, right? but there's a lot of, I feel like the hype might be a little, when we talk about ACC football in general, I feel like we always hype them up at the beginning of the season, but I feel like the hype is a little overstated. How do you feel about this team?
I think they deserve it going into the season because of all the players that they do have coming back. It's not just Devin Leary. They returned basically their entire starting defense, which should be one of the best right up there with Clemson. When you talk about defensive line putting everything together, I think they deserve it because of where we think they will be. But this weekend at East Carolina, that's a danger game. You know, NC State has typically not played well on the road against East Carolina. People there are nervous about it. They're also nervous because they are getting some hype, right? NC State always believes the worst is going to happen. So, with all the hype, is good going to happen, or are we going to be overhyping them in the end?
Well, when I look at this team, I think they have two of the better linebackers in the country. And defensively, we know what they're going to be. Offensively, I'm trying to see, can Carter at the wide receiver position, Thayer Thomas, can those guys pick up the slack from Emeka Emenzi, who's now the National Football Leader, trying to get on the team? Can they be all right? But they're losing two running backs that they had last year, too, who's a big part of the rushing attack.
I'm scared for NC State because it looks so good, right? Like all the talent coming back, 17 starters, the most I think of any team in the country. And the part that makes me so frightened for them is they have really just 2 games where you're like, okay, like those are the ones, right? Like the rest, if you are truly a playoff contending team, that schedule, you're going to Clemson, I believe, October 1st, and at the end of the season, you play at North Carolina, which honestly, I think if all of us were to pick that game today, we'd probably pick NC State. So to me, it almost seems too perfect, and that's why I'm nervous for them. But everything on paper looks great.
Too good to be true.
You said North Carolina and Clemson. They have a hard time with Wake Forest. Okay, this is a team that cannot beat Wake Forest. So that's one that also needs to be circled. If they beat Wake Forest last year, they're in the ACC championship game, and they couldn't get it done.
That's very true. Okay, let's go to the team that we all want to talk about, all of us on this set right now.
You sure?
Obviously, the University of Miami. No, I'm just kidding.
All of us? Is that right, Christine?
Okay, but let's be serious here. We were talking before. I was actually talking to Pollack, and he said he doesn't think that Cristobal is a good coach. So whatever, Pollack. That's why you're not on the show today. Anyways, let's talk about Miami. Do you feel like Miami can eventually, not even necessarily this season, be back with Cristobal at the helm?
So I'm from Miami, so I always love talking about Miami.
You know what, HD, you want to go?
Let's go ahead. Let's let them have this part of the show.
Question whether Miami's going to be back. Right? I think what Miami is doing with this hire of Mario Cristobal, but not just that, everything else they've done around the program, boosting the financial commitment, the amount of support staff that they have, basically everything that Mario asked for, he got. So there's a lot more than just, okay, he's the head coach now. Eventually, do I think they're going to get there? I do, because he can recruit his tail off. They need to dominate South Florida in recruiting. They haven't been able to do it. And I think, based on what he's already done in a very short period of time, he will get there. Does it happen this year? I don't know about this year. I did not pick them to win the Coastal. But do they get there eventually? I think they'll be in the mix at some point. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's going to take a couple years for Mario Cristobal to turn that thing around. But where do you want to start? Quarterback position, and they have one in Tyler Van Dyke, who showed up and showed out last year when he wasn't the guy early on, when De'Aaron King went down, or he came in and filled in. He did his thing. Now, I will say this. I love their coaching staff. And one of the things why that's important to me is because when you have guys on your coaching staff that have been there and done it, they're not going to ask their players to do anything that they haven't done. So I think that's why it's important. But Coach Cristobal has to continue to recruit South Florida so those guys do not leave there and go to other big universities.
100%.
That's when Miami's at their best. That's when they're getting those guys. I mean, look, again, it's almost similar to NC State. All that sounds great, right? Like it sounds like Miami is actually built to come back and be the U, right? Christine, you and I were talking about it. We weren't certain about, right, hey, like, is getting rid of the turnover chain good? And remember, we were like, hey, you know what? If they get rid of the chain and they actually play like the chain and what that represents, then you take that. So you know what? I think at least as of right now, I'm willing to give Mario Cristobal that. Let's see what he gets done.
Speaking of the turnover chain, it was a little too gimmicky. Everybody started adapting it across college football, so it's a little too gimmicky. He wanted to go back to actually winning football games. And I think the thing that's key is when we were talking about this throughout the offseason, a lot of the old heads, as we call them, the guys that actually were there when Miami was winning, they're buying into what Cristobal is doing, which I think is huge because the culture is really big in Miami. And also they have a new AD in Dan Radakovich who said he's going to change everything in the next 5 years. So we'll see what happens in Miami. It's still great to be a Miami Hurricane. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so Harry, I do want to ask you this. Did you have any like go-to celebrations or anything that you would do during a game?
Yes. For me, it was talking smack to my opponent, getting in their head, talking to them all game, talking to fans on the sideline. See, I had an opportunity to play against Pitt, and I had an opportunity to play against West Virginia. On the sideline, I got batteries thrown at me, got hit with batteries or whatnot. Pitt, I remember catching a nice little post route for a touchdown right in this end zone right here.
Look at that.
So I had my years, and I would let the fans know any and everything about their team that I felt. And sometimes, unpleasant words were used, but it's too hot for TV. I can't say I'm Christine.
Well, I would also like to point out that Harry has been talking trash to people here already, and it's like, Harry, you're not even going to play football tonight, so I don't understand, but you're already talking smack. Anyway,
can't help it. I can't help it.
So on the next episode of Eli's Places, Eli asks Orlando Pace the origin of his signature pancake block, and Dwight Freeney breaks down where his patented spin move began.
How did basketball inspire your signature spin move?
It's kind of funny. You would think it would start on the football field, start on the basketball court, where I looked at it as, hey, look, I start at point A, I need to get to point B. How's the best way I can get there? And I said, you know what, let me try a spin, and there it goes. I started spinning, and that's kind of how it started.
You can explore the expansive world of college football through the eyes of Eli Manning on Season 2 of Eli's Places, streaming now exclusively on ESPN+. And be sure to check out the kickoff with Jason Fitz and Gary Streisky every Friday this season from 6 to 6:30 p.m. on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the ESPN app. Okay, so we have a little over an hour to the return of the Backyard Brawl, so we thought we'd take a look back at some favorite moments, starting in 1997, I don't know why I'm saying it like that. That's weird. West Virginia's Mark Bolgert passed for 348 yards in a 3-overtime game. But with Pitt facing 4th and 17 in overtime, they get a clutch 20-yard completion from Jake Hofford and Terry Murphy. Catches the game-winning touchdown 2 plays later. Amazing. Okay, so now we go to 2006. This one was a 45-27 blowout for West Virginia, known only for this play. So Revis fields this punt, gets help from his monster block, that takes out 2 players, takes it down the sideline, and puts the spin move on Pat McAfee.
Come on, McAfee.
Goes 73 yards for the touchdown.
Make the tackle, man. You had one job.
That's embarrassing.
Make the tackle.
That is so embarrassing. Okay, the next year it's 2007. Pitt was just 4-7, 28.5 point underdog. Number 2 West Virginia, didn't matter. Pitt pulled off one of the biggest upsets in college football history and crushed the Mountaineers' BCS hopes. I mean, that's actually very sad. I love fans. Sad fans are the best. And then finally, 2008, down 2 in the 4th, Pitt mounts a 10-play drive featuring 9 carries from LaShawn McCoy, including that run into the end zone with under a minute left to give Pitt the 19-15 dub. All right, so we bring in Spencer Hall, a.k.a. who Robert Griffin III said, I don't know how to say this guy's name, Zach. How do you say his last name? Galifianakis?
Galifianakis.
You look like him, apparently.
Hey, and he said the vibes, though, too.
You
can't forget the vibes.
It was the vibes plus the look. And,
vibes.
like, you got the sunglasses on.
That's
it's, like,
right.
giving very much, what was that show called? The Hangover.
Yeah, no, I also want to tell everybody, by the way, I am decidedly impartial, despite the West Virginia appearance.
Yeah, you do look very
I could be the mascot's daddy, but no, I'm on the fence today, strictly journalism.
I mean, you have on, is that, what color is that?
Armadillos.
And are these Pitt or West Virginia shoes?
Yes.
I do have a West Virginia shoe, but don't look at that. Could be a Pitt shoe. Remember,
those look like Pitt shoes, too.
Yeah, this is not a color battle, right? We don't have like a red versus blue team.
Yeah.
They kind of all blend in, which I think makes things really hard if a fight breaks out.
The most important thing, though, of the outfit, you got the taco meat out, man.
That's right, brother.
What
Yes,
I'm talking
sir.
about,
Let 'em
man.
know.
Let them see who you really are.
What, if you got landscaping, show it off.
Okay, so we saw some of the best moments from the Backyard Brawl. What are your favorite memories from
I'm going to go back a little bit further as a resident old guy. I'm going to go ahead and say 1994. This is where Pitt gets behind 31-6 at Old Pitt Stadium, and then manages to roar back to 41-40 with 15 seconds left in the game. Surely in the Backyard Brawl, 1 point would be enough for victory. No. West Virginia throws a bomb out of nowhere with 15 seconds left to stun the Panthers and the comeback and keep the title in the Backyard Brawl. That, for me, will always be my favorite.
Wow.
The crazy thing about that game, West Virginia had an interception for a touchdown, a blocked field goal for a touchdown, a two-point conversion for a touchdown, and a 60-yarder to end the game.
Crazier thing about that game, 94, Don Eiler, the public address announcer for Pitt, had to resign after the game because of a couple of announcements that he made. He said there was a West Virginia car, or I'm sorry, a tractor in the parking lot with the license plate, E-I-E-I-O. You need to come get your vehicle. And he also said there's no smoking allowed in the stadium, and that includes corn cob pipes. So Mr. Ireland went on a brief hiatus. He ultimately came back, though.
I love that.
He ultimately came back.
I love that so much. I'm going to ask you this, Lyles, since you're on the sideline. What makes this rivalry so special, other than the things that obviously we've already talked about?
You know, I think it truly is not just the proximity of the schools, but it's the difference between these two fan bases. Morgantown in the country. We're in Pittsburgh. This is a pro sports town. This is a big city. And there were so many people, and as it was described to me, they always said we share the same turf, right? A great story that kind of shows just how close it is. Mark Bulger went to Central Catholic High School here in Pittsburgh. You could literally spit and hit Pitt's campus from it. They did not recruit him. Don Nealon, who was the coach of West Virginia at the time, recruited him. He went over there, and he had his best games against Pitt every single time. And in 1998, he threw for 6 touchdowns, said he would have thrown for 10 because he knew that the coordinators that told him he wouldn't even play Division II football, let alone Division I, were still on that other sideline. He wanted to go for 10.
What do you think makes it so special?
I'm sure everything he said is fascinating and interesting and accurate. However, West Virginia just walked out, so you heard all of these Pitt fans obliterate everything he said with like waves of boos. He's right. I think any rivalry is contingent on this. You don't get rivalries between teams that are very far away. You get the fiercest rivalries between teams that are very similar and yet very different, right? Morgantown, small town, rural state. Pittsburgh, relatively, it's the big city here, and yet the two are separated by just a thin strip of land to get to Morgantown. If we have to fly in, we fly into Pittsburgh, right? They're so close to being the same people and yet so different at the same time, competing over the same resources, same players, the same mojo. They want it. It's a small pool. There's 2 people, and they got to fight over all that water.
That's right.
Country road.
Okay, but that's not about West Virginia.
It's about the western part of Virginia. It's about the western part of Virginia.
That song is not about West Virginia.
I'm not going to sing it because they're right there. They'll come over that rail.
No, they won't.
No,
the West Virginia fans.
I'm not choosing them as far as I can throw them. I'm choosing the Pitt Panthers tonight because of their defense.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Pitt just because I think they're a little bit deeper. I think they're probably they have some question marks, but overall I think they are, on paper, the more talented team. Of course, on paper, the Backyard Brawl is a coin flip. But I'm going to go ahead, if I were a betting man, and I am not, I would go ahead and take Pitt.
Lyles, can you choose a side?
I cannot because I'm on the sideline, but I will say I do think that this game is really going to be decided on the line. And I think that we're going to see a West Virginia team that I think is better than what people are expecting out of them. But that Pitt defense, man, those guys were hungry yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's going to show out here on this football field tonight.
Okay, well, to close, I won't make a prediction because I just won't. Okay, so to close.
Okay.
I think Pitt's going to win. But anyways, to close our show today, it's week 1. We're going into, obviously, we have a college football weekend, but I do want to get some bold predictions from each of us. And by each of us, I mean y'all 3. You already know what my bold prediction is going to be. All right, Spencer, for the entire college football season, do you have like a bold prediction that will, it's like a bad take, basically?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and say this. If you had to take a dark horse for the national title or for the playoff, let's be a little conservative and say playoff. Utah. I'm just going to go ahead and say Utah. I like the way they play. They're relentlessly physical at the line, built for brutality, and finally have an offense to match.
Okay, so I'm looking at HG because I know that was going to be his bold prediction, but I mean...
Well, a team from the Pac-12 will make the college football playoffs, and it's a great chance they will play for the national championship. So I knew me and you were going to be on the same page. Connection.
Zach Galifianakis.
You know, I don't think this is bold or gutsy. I think Will Anderson's going to win the Heisman.
Yeah.
How about that? I think when Devontae Smith won it, obviously a receiver winning it is different, but I think because he kicked down that door, it's going to be easier for Will Anderson to kick his down.
Okay, and I'm going to go on and say that the University of Miami will win. I'm just kidding.
Oh, my
All right.
Will win the entire national championship. We're going. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so coming up right after us right here, you can watch College Gameday on ESPN. Obviously, it's week 1. We were there for week 0 last week, but the guys and Reese Davis will be talking about everything going down this week in this matchup. It's been so great hanging out with you guys. And guess what? We get even more Countdown to College Gameday on Saturday. You're not going to miss that one as we're in Columbus, Ohio. For them to take on Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman, we'll see how they do in that matchup. Spencer, thanks for hanging out with us.
My pleasure.
Harry's, it's great hanging. Everybody, do not forget to watch Harry Lyles Jr. on the sideline.
Yes.
I also want to just point out, David Paul just told me to shut up. That's why he's not on the show today. Watch Harry Lyles Jr. on the sideline of West Virginia Pitt for the Backyard Brawl. We will see you in like 2 days. It's been great hanging. Go watch some college football. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Countdown to College Gameday presented by Dr. Pepper.
Good shit.